Sharon Hurley Hall is an anti-racism activist, writer and educator. She is co-founder of Mission Equality, a company focused on achieving equality for everyone, everywhere. In this episode, Sharon shares her insights on tackling racism, her experiences as a global educator, and how she is actively working towards a more inclusive society. Sharon's story is not just inspiring, but also a testament to the power of dedication and education in shaping a brighter, more equality-focused future.
I was working for a small arm of a well-known national newspaper, right? Yeah. And I put myself forward for a new role, which came with a certain pay rise. And I got the role, but I didn't get the whole pay rise. And there was some BS excuse about why I shouldn't get it. I can't remember exactly what they said at the time. I knew it was BS. I took the promotion and started looking for another job. Yeah. Which is so often what Black people end up doing, is that you end up moving in order to get what you need, or to temporarily experience less harm. But it's like, do workplaces really have to work like this? And so that's more, in addition to the anti-racism, that's part of what my current work is about with Mission Equality. We're thinking, okay, how can we create a situation where people have more equality, more psychological safety in workplaces? And it's so important, because I think that people, especially Black people, people of the global majority, experience so much harm in workplaces, in white majority workplaces, in white majority countries. And that's not to say we don't experience harm in post-colonial countries too, because we do. It's all the same poisoned root, really, in my view. But is there a way that we can do less harm? And actually have a more pleasant, may I even say joyful experience sometimes. Yeah.
I'm wondering what that looks like. What does a workplace that is moving the right way towards DEI, which is, it's not performative, it's actually proactive. What does that look like in your world? Because I know there's a lot of different arms to DEI. There's the people moving for neurodivergency. There's the people moving for, LGBTQ rights. But I feel like you're kind of really focused around race equality or race equity, which is a hard fight to fight, because it's a global battle and it's not something you can hide. You can enter the workplace and pretend to be, neurotypical. You can enter the workplace and not disclose the fact you might be part of the LGBTQ crowd. It'd be very hard pressed to walk into a workplace and not be Black. How do you keep that kind of mission going forward despite the initial hardships that you're facing on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, so in my own personal life, I am no longer working day-to-day in offices. In our company, Mission Equality, we have aimed to do it differently from the beginning. We're a startup, and so we launched last June, right? So we're about 15 months old. And we started from the premises of how can we create more equality and be really people first in the way that we run the company. And so my co-founder and I, well, first of all, the first policy that we wrote was our anti-racism policy, an anti-racism policy with teeth that says, here's racism. We're going to believe Black people when they experience racism. We're going to take steps for remediation when it happens. We're going to encourage white members of our team to do their own work. We're going to make spaces available where they can do that work as well. And really get to the point where people take responsibility for their actions, right? So there was that. We made it less hierarchical. We have no C-suite titles. Everybody is basically on the same pay scale according to the number of hours that they put in, right? What else? And we're totally flexible. We encourage people to take the time they need to to rest, for self-care, for whatever. And a lot of people say, well, how does that work? How do you actually get anything done? But while we were running, we had the system. We have managed to work with several companies, get large contracts, work with people, deliver what we need to deliver without anybody feeling completely exhausted and depleted at the end of that process. Now, I admit it's easier for us because we were new and we could just start from scratch. But I also believe that there are things that other companies can do, other workplaces can do to make the workplaces work better. And some of that starts with understanding some of these ideas that underpin the ways that we behave and where those have come from. But more than that, it's being committed to make change, to make the world a more equal place. I mean, inequity is baked into everything, isn't it, Sam? It's like it's everywhere around us, in every system, because of capitalism, because of colonialism, because of enslavement, because of all those, because of patriarchy, because of all those things. So, all people who face isms are at the sharp end of that, right? And if you have, as you said, I'm a black woman, people who are black and trans, people who are black and disabled, people who face multiple isms, people, if you're also neurodivergent, and you have lots of ways in which the world is not currently set up to work well for you. But the truth is that when you make things work for the people who are most marginalized, you make it work better for everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And it shouldn't be a big ask.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a big ask.
Yeah.
We have to unlearn this whole notion of what professionalism looks like, because that's basically a white supremacist construct.
Yeah. I mean, professionalism in and of itself is a strange concept, because it then makes you have this kind of split personality almost of like, this is work me and this is personal me. And obviously, yes, there's some parts of yourself you don't bring to work, but there should also be an element of you should feel comfortable at work, that you're not, going to be have to treading on eggshells and all that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering, we can talk all day about the specific challenges faced by each individual marginalized group of people and all that kind of stuff. But let's try to be proactive here and talk about the ways that we can work on these things, because there could be a person out there listening to this that is, in that C-suite or in that place of hiring people, and they want to know how to proactively make sure their workplace is more diverse, more equitable, and, as well as that, being inclusive of all types of people.
Yes, we can talk about that, but I want to also set the stage a little, which is that it's not enough to bring people in. It's not enough to say you want to be more diverse and bring people in, people who face isms, if you have not laid the groundwork to make that place safe for them, psychologically and actually, right? There's no point saying I want to recruit more Black people, and then a Black person comes in and they're the only one in there and they're completely unsupported, and you treat them like they're other, right? I mean, many of us have had that experience. You're the only person in there and you're like this strange creature. They don't quite know what to make of you. Somehow, you're not one of the boys or one of the girls. You don't get invited to the lunches. You don't get invited to the social things. And so you end up being, operating at a deficit, even though you're turning up and you're doing your job, right? And so I see you nodding there. It's like, this, right? This is how many of us experience work. So you really have to shift your culture, which is easier said than done, in order to create spaces that are safe for people. And a lot of the work that we do is helping people to make those paradigm shifts about what work should look like, and those cultural changes that underpin healthier workplaces, right? So we're currently, for example, we have something that we call the MIX or MX of equality, which is a business and leadership program that we're rolling out to help people ask the right questions. We don't say we have all the answers, because who among us actually knows what equality looks like? Right?
Yeah.
It's not something that we've experienced. It's something that we can only imagine. But, you need to think about getting into practicalities. Okay, how are you communicating with people? How are you being transparent with people? How are you letting people know where you are in this process of becoming a more diverse and inclusive organization, right? People need to know what they're getting into, right? How are you looking at your hiring processes, right? Are you inadvertently or deliberately discriminating against people with names that don't necessarily match what you might expect as the norm for your particular area? I mean, I've had so many double takes. I interviewed, my name is Sharon Hurley Hall. It was Sharon Hurley. And so I walk in and then they kind of wrap back because, they're not expecting Sharon Hurley to look like me.
Yeah.
Right?
They're expecting an Irish woman
Okay.
to walk in, to be
So
honest.
they're expecting an Irish woman to walk in, blue-eyed and blonde. And, I'm the furthest thing from
Yeah.
that. So, it's how do you shift your own attitudes about what is expected? How do you make sure that when you get people in, they're going to be supported? How do you change policies that inadvertently might discriminate against people? So, for example, does your workplace recognize several different cultural holidays equally, right? Or is it, basically Christian based,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, um, what is considered, do your policies specify what is considered professional work attire or hairstyles? And does that discriminate against people who are wearing hijab or African inspired
Yeah.
hairstyles, right? Um, does your idea of professionalism depend on people making eye contact with you when there are people who are, some neurodivergent people might find that uncomfortable? It doesn't affect their ability to do the job, right? So, you have to be prepared to go on to look at everything and strip away the non-essentials, right? That's the first thing. And the other thing that we talk a lot about in our company is shifting from a paradigm of power and control to one of trust and freedom,
Yeah.
right? Where people are trusted to do the job that you hired them to do and to do it in a way and in a time that works well for them. And, you're not, you're not wasting their time or yours by micromanaging, for example, and you don't have a sort of punishment mindset,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's definitely.
Because I mean that is so rife in organizations,
Yeah.
right? And that you're not, yeah, that you don't have hustle culture for no reason. You don't have hustle culture for no reason.
Yeah. So when you're working
It's like,
in an organization that's got the old school mindset, is it like it's too far gone to bring it back, or are there little steps you can take to bring it closer to this ideal that we're speaking of, or this idea that we're speaking of a workplace where you feel, trusted and comfortable?
I believe that many workplaces can be saved, for want of a better word, if the leadership are committed, prepared to change, and prepared to lead by example, right? Uh, and that means a lot of things. That means transparency and communication are key if you're trying to effect cultural change.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have to tell people where you want to go, and you have to get there, you have to get them involved. I mean, I don't think that anybody, is going to have a problem with more equal workplaces that work better for everyone.
Yeah.
So you have to start by communicating. You have to start by looking at your policies and your processes. You have to think about what are the changes that you would want to make in order to make this happen. You have to talk to the people that you're working with, um, and not as a diktat from on high, but as a, we really, we need everybody to be on board with this. We want to know what you think. We want to hear what your concerns are. And then, but you also have to then make it and this may be tricky in some cases. If you've had a culture where people are not encouraged to speak their minds, or where it's not okay to make mistakes, then people might be hesitant about speaking up. If you have a culture where, you as the leader of the organization can come to a meeting and say, hey, man, I really messed up with this thing. And, but here's what we're going to do now. If you go in with that, that openness, then you can start, I believe, to effect a cultural shift.
Yeah. And
Right?
workplace culture is something that everyone's talking about right now. Oh, make sure you get the culture right. If they're not a good culture fit, then don't worry about it. But what we tend to end up with now is these kind of weird echo chambers. So the people that are, for lack of a better word, more woke, they work for the woke company that's woke through and through. And then the people that are more scared of woke culture, they'll hire a lot of white people and go, oh, there's too much white people here. Okay, let's hire a black person. Okay, we'll hire an Asian person. Okay, we'll hire a gay person. Then they go back to oh, no, I like him. He's, just like me and all that kind of stuff. So how do we make sure that consistently our culture is inclusion focused without it becoming, like I said, an echo chamber of ourselves or our self-beliefs?
Well, we have to stop talking about culture fit and maybe start thinking about culture add.
Mm,
Start talking about, you know, accepting people with all the things that they bring in, not wanting people who are a reflection of yourself, and those values that, in some cases are harming everybody or certainly not helping. And recognizing that so many of us have something to offer, and it doesn't have to be offered in the way that you think it has to be offered to still be valuable.
mm,
You know.
yeah. So, oh, go
Um,
on. Sorry.
yeah.
No, as you were. Sorry, I thought you were winding up your point. Carry on, carry on. Sorry.
No, again, in our company we have lots of people that, well, we're a small team, but everybody thinks slightly differently, and we collect regularly. We have like weekly office hours. We have our regular team meetings. We document everything. People are always kept informed. People are encouraged to share their views. We have a group chat for the company, and so we really want to hear what's going on with people, and that's all of it. That's, and it's not just about the work, right? It's not just about the work. It's, here's here's what I was doing with my family, or I attended Pride this weekend,
Mm,
or it's Juneteenth, here's what I did, or um it's encouraging people to bring themselves completely as they are. And it means leading by example. It means that, for example, as co-founder of the company, if I'm having a bad day for some reason, I can go into the group chat and say, look, I'm having a bad day. Don't expect much of me today. And so I'm showing that humanness,
mm,
right? And a lot of us are scared to do that, because that's what we've been told that that's not okay, especially I think men, but people also in leadership positions, showing that vulnerability is something that's often frowned upon. But again, where does it come from? And is that the way that we want to live for the rest of our lives? Is that the way is that healthy for the future of people and planet?
yeah.
Because I don't think it is.
Yeah. I mean, this is something I kind of want to dive into because I'm finding this quite interesting as I'm hearing it from the little bits of story here and there. But it's like, the kind of ignorant view right now is your workplace is people work when they want, how they want, and if they feel like it. But you're saying, yeah, exactly. That's the best way to get high quality work. But it goes
Yes.
against everything that we've been, hammering on about for the last 100 years of capitalism. So kind of talk to me about how this system works. If people are working when they want, how they want, all over the world, how do we get anything done in a timely manner?
Well, who says that things have to be done in a timely manner?
Mm, yeah.
What is driving that idea that there's a time in which certain things have to be done? Are we doing things in a timely manner so that the people who are already rich can get richer while the poor continue to get poorer?
Mm,
Are we doing things in a timely manner so that, corporations benefit while the individual workers continue to suffer, right? If something is not healthy for the people within the company, how can the company itself be healthy?
Yeah.
Right? Well, it shouldn't be. I mean, but and is making money the only thing that is important? I don't think it is. I think people are important,
Yeah.
right? And people feeling fulfilled and happy. Imagine, if you will, a situation where everybody had shelter, everybody had food, and everybody had enough of an income to get the necessities in life. How then would we choose to live our lives? What would we choose to do? What would still be important to
Yeah.
us? Right? Why do why do things the way they've always been done when it's clear that it's not working for so many of us? It's affecting people's health, it's killing the planet. If we were really sensible, we'd be, everybody would be rushing to a new system.
Yeah.
We we put out a black paper on equalism that lays out some thoughts on how we could do things differently, or ask some questions rather,
Yeah.
because we never assume that we have all the answers. But we're saying that, we need to be asking different questions if we're going to do things differently and better and more healthily for everyone
Yeah.
and for the planet that we live on.
Yeah. I mean, talk to me about this black paper. I'm assuming it's a play on the phrase white paper, which is an instruction manual for how things work. So talk to me about this black paper. How does it work?
It is.
How does it work? What's going on there? Like, what's in that document?
Our tagline is black paper because why should everything be white?
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we talk a lot about how we got here. Talk a little bit about how we got here, the harmful systems that we've inherited that have got us to this point. And then we talk about reimagining the future and thinking about things differently based on several frameworks that we've been using that are working for us. So first of all, there's like the three-step process of change, which is the as is, the to be, and getting from A to B. So, here's where we are, here's where we'd like to get to, here's some ways of thinking about how to get there. We have our rail framework, which looks at representation, equity, accountability, and leadership, and how those play into thinking about some of the different systems that we have in business and in other parts of our lives that could be changed, right? We have, what else? We have another framework which we call FAIR. I'm going to, it's like, I can't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head all the things that it stands for, but it does include radical personal responsibility for making change, right? Yeah, we've thought about, oh yes, and then the tension between the individual and the collective, how we can be fulfilled as people while also contributing to the collective good. I'll send you a link after if you want, and you can have a read and see what's in that.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Right? I think me and the listener need to read this black paper because it'd be the first one I come across that isn't blackmail, which, again, is one of those things where it's like, why does the bad mail have to be blackmail? It's a crazy thing. But, yes. you seem to be quite like, I guess, like a marketing whiz, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, because you've written a book and it's called I'm Tired of Racism. That title alone sells the book. Talk to me about the process of writing, your other books as well as this book. What did that look like for you? Did it come naturally? Because I know you've worked in journalism before, but, writing a book is a whole different monster to tackle, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I worked as a journalist for a long time, and then I worked as a freelance writer until very recently. But what actually happened, the current book, I'm Tired of Racism, goes back to May 2020, George Floyd, and I wrote an essay, which I published on Medium at the time, called I'm Tired of Racism, because I just felt this bone-deep weariness with all the ways that Black people were suffering all around the world, constantly just because of the color of our skin. And as a result of that, I ended up starting an anti-racism newsletter, antiracismnewsletter.com, and publishing regularly. Sometimes, a few months in, someone said to me, you know, I'm sure your newsletter is really valuable, but it would be so helpful if I had some of this stuff collected.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself, okay, fine. I'm going to collect some of these essays in a book. And, I write about different things. I write, one of my early series of articles was about working while Black. And then I broadened that out to existing while Black and talking about some of the experiences that we have, like what happens when you eat out, what happens when you go into a shop and you get followed around and so on, right? Just sharing stories of things that had happened to me, which people found relatable because, for most Black people that I know, they've had several of these experiences throughout their lives, right? Many white people couldn't quite believe it, but of course, because I'm telling this as a story, and then people are saying, "Yeah, this happened to me too." They're saying, "Oh my God, now I'm starting to get it." And then, I talked a little bit about the post-colonial context in Barbados and the Caribbean, and then some of the pieces were commenting on the news as well. And then it also includes, I think, a couple of poems because I occasionally write poetry, although not many people have seen it.
Yeah.
And so I gathered that together and decided that I was going to produce this book, which eventually, after a long process, came out last year. And the long process was I didn't end up going with the original publisher. I ended up self-publishing. I got it edited professionally. And so, yeah, and I've had really great feedback on it. I've had really great feedback on it. I think stories provide a very relatable and easy and accessible way for people to get into what the experience of racism is like for Black people day to day.
Yeah.
Um, one of my most popular pieces, I think it's called Paper Cuts. Paper Cuts Still Make You Bleed, and it's about a day in the life, right, from morning to evening, of all the things that could happen to you as a Black
Right.
person. And I end with, you might not experience all of these every day, but you'll probably experience at least some of them. Starting with, you're watching the morning news and something's happened to another Black person, to, you're in the office and somebody assumes you're there to make the tea, or the security guard doesn't let you in because even though you've been there every day for 5 years, they still somehow think you're a stranger. you know, I mean, the sad thing, Sam, is I didn't make anything up. This is all stuff. That's why the subtitle is True Stories of Existing While
Yeah.
Black. This is all stuff that happened to me or happened to people I know, that things that happen every day. I have another book called Exploring Shadeism, which is about colorism, which was originally a master's research project. And I finally self-published it when I was able to do so. I am planning to do an update at some point, but who knows when I'm actually going to get to that.
Yeah.
I've got so much going on. But yeah, the publishing process was easy because I decided to
Yeah.
self-publish. But of course, that means that you then have to spend a lot of time marketing. So you spend time pre-promoting it, then you spend time promoting it, and then you keep spending time promoting it. I was having this conversation with some friends the other day. You have to keep telling people that your book is out there, otherwise you don't sell
Yeah.
it. But that is also the case if you're traditionally published.
Well, yeah,
You
you
know,
have that marketing machine behind you if you've got a publishing house, because they have a vested interest in selling as much of that book as possible because they've got copies printed sat there that they want gone. So I'm wondering, for you as an independent publisher, what does that look like? What does the marketing machine look like for you? Is it just lots of speaking engagements, lots of posts, or is it something different that I'm not aware of?
so it's a really good point. And, I just want to add one more footnote to that to say that, the publishing industry is very white. I am not convinced that if I had taken that book to anyone, they would have said, yeah, I'm dying to publish this.
Yeah.
Right? So I decided to go it alone right from the start, more or less. Um, so what it looked like for me was, knowing where your network is. So my network is primarily on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn. So I posted about the book and the self-publishing process for a couple of months, well, before I was ready to launch it. I went on to Draft to Digital and I set up a book purchase link and I made it available in some other stores. I uploaded it to Amazon as well. And so I made it available for pre-order and, kept posting, kept telling people that the launch was coming, did a LinkedIn live event, which was also streamed on YouTube. And then after that, what I've done is, I've taken out little snippets and I've shared them. I mention it in my newsletter. I've done podcasts and other speaking engagements. Interestingly, one of the pieces of work that we're currently doing at Mission Equality came about because someone had heard of my book. And so she got in touch with us. And then we ended up working with her. Um, um, One of the YWCAs, in fact, on, organizational culture and anti-racism education, among other things.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, I think more people need to hear these stories. It's a way to unlock a little bit of empathy. And while on the one hand you feel like people you shouldn't have to have it unlocked.
Yeah.
Like people should value you and care about what happens to you because we're all human beings. But we all know that sometimes it's about hearing those stories that make you think differently or that touch you in some ways. And another piece that I think is in the book was um what if the tables were turned? And it's about imagine yourself, as a white person, somebody snatches your child and ships that child halfway around the world. You would call it
Mm.
trafficking,
Yeah.
right? And you'd be very
Yeah.
upset. So, in other words, just put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Think about all this stuff that we have been experiencing and the inheritance of centuries of genocide and enslavement, right? And then the current situation of policies that discriminate against us, of workplaces that are toxic and particularly harmful to people who look like us, and then do something about it. If because if you have the power to do something about it, it's inhumane not to do something about it.
Yeah. No, most definitely. So the mission of Mission Equality is to bring more diversity to the workplace, more equity to the workplace, more inclusion to the workplace. And I'm wondering if you have any kind of success stories that you can share or any kind of real world examples that you've experienced in Mission Equality of your work having an impact on somebody's business or somebody's life.
We worked with a startup towards the end of last year, and what we did was a couple of workshops. I would loosely term them inclusion
Mm-hmm.
workshops, but they were probably more leadership development workshops as
Yeah.
well, where we got people to think about their privilege in relation to the relative privilege of team members in lots of different areas and how that might play into the workplace experience, and also to think about workplace safety. And I know that as a result, they started implementing some policy changes. They went away and talked to other members of their team. They had a better understanding of the kind of experience they might be having, and they were able to identify ways in which they were not living up to their mission that were easy
Mm-hmm.
fixes for them. So that was one example. We're currently in the middle of an engagement where a lot of culture change needs to happen. Uh, but in talking to people, we've been able to start to put into place some things like regular communication, like office hours, keeping the lines open, like changing some of the policy language in order to be less punitive and more friendly and more people friendly, you know. So yes, certainly. And the other thing that we did earlier this year in July was we had an event for DEI practitioners, allies, advocates called Equal Futures. It was one day in London, and we basically invited all these people in, and we said, here, okay, you now have the freedom to reimagine what an equal future would look like in justice, in education, in parenting, in business, etc., etc. And people just gathered around and had those conversations. And it was really interesting because lots of people want freedom and flexibility, but because we haven't had it, we don't always know immediately what to do with it and how to handle
Mm.
it. So I think, some people probably wanted a little more structure, but where it was basically, okay, we've created this space. Now here you are, it's yours to mold as you want. And the great thing about that is that lots of people that had not had the chance to talk to each other came together and were able to have those conversations. There was a great plan that came out of that for getting more finance into the hands of Black women who are normally underfinanced and have trouble accessing it, right? Sort of a micro loan type approach. Um, and we set up our WhatsApp group to support people. So, the conversations are continuing to happen. We're not leading them. The people are deciding what they need to do and gathering together, but there's that space where people can come together and share. So yeah, that's another practical example of the work we're doing. And a third thing is we have an association called the Anti-Racist Leaders Association, which meets a couple times a month for people to ask questions, things that they're struggling with in relation to anti-racism. And the other one is for education. So, for example, we have had presentations on microaggressions, on sustainability and making, and how do you do that in a more equal way, on the experience of being Black and trans, on the unbearable whiteness of neurodiversity, etc. And then we support that with a WhatsApp group where we share articles and discussion prompts for people to think about. And what I have seen as a result of doing this work, my co-founder Leah and I were doing this work even before starting this company at a previous company that we were both involved in, is that people start to feel more comfortable with taking a stance as an anti-racist, and they know what to do. They're aware of some of the pitfalls to avoid, and they're more confident in challenging racist behavior where they see it, and bigotry where they see it, because I think it spreads out into other areas. So, some of these people are working in large firms and they're taking what they've learned and they're going out and they're influencing people there. So it's a kind of ripple effect, and I really have to give props here to my co-founder, Leah Jofi Ford, whom I describe as the magical inspiration behind our company. Right. I'm a really good implementer. I know the anti-racism stuff. She is amazing at gathering people together around a vision and knowing what to do to make that actually happen. So, we're a good
Yeah.
team. We're a good
I mean,
team.
any good business needs
Yeah.
either a good co-founder or a good kind of marital partner just to bounce ideas off or to, balance things out as it is. But I mean, the mission you guys are on is such a big mission. In the last 10 to 20 years, we're seeing movements in the right direction for all kinds of people to be able to work in a way that's, beneficial to them and beneficial to the workforce. But one thing that I'm kind of curious about is, what does the future of anti-racism look like? What does the future of DEI look like? And is it something that we're moving towards fast, or is it something that we're slowly creeping towards?
The future looks like, I'm going to answer that by saying when we did our original black paper, because the current one is an update, what we said is that, you know, when we achieve our mission, we won't need to exist anymore, right? When we get to a stage where people are treated equally and the color of your skin is no more important than anything else. You don't have to gather around that identity of being Black in order to feel that togetherness, in order to have that political clout. When you're getting what you need as of right, as a human being, to be empowered and embodied and be your whole self, then we won't need anti-racism and we won't need DEI or any of those things. Now, we're not there yet. You know, this is not, I don't even know, I don't know when we'll be there. I know that it's important to work towards it. I think anything that we can do to embed more equality in our lives and eliminate as much racism as possible moves us closer to the kind of world that we all want to live in. You know, I always bring up Star Trek. I'm a little bit of a Trek, right? And right, you know, when you look at the people on the bridge, they're right. They're all kinds of alien species. You know, some of them have breathing devices. Some of the, you know, they have what they need, and it's just provided. And it's not, you know, just because they look different, it doesn't mean they can't do the job. And everything that they are comes into how they do their jobs, how they live their lives. And you can imagine if we could get that balance right in our world. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing?
Oh, yeah. No, it definitely would be. And something else I'm curious about, you know, the work you're doing is very important work. And it's something that, you know, most people talk about having a mission and whatever else, and it doesn't really matter. But your mission is one that affects people and changes lives. But what is it about what you do that brings the most joy?
I love it when I see the light bulb moments. I love it when I see people start to get it. I love it when I see people when I see the ripples going forward, and I know that I've had a small part in shifting how people think about an issue or helping people have that confidence. You know, you alluded to the fact that I worked as a teacher. I was a journalism lecturer at Coventry University for a few years. And, you know, as a teacher, as an educator, even as a leader, you want people to get it. You want people to understand, and you want them to be able to take it forward and use it for good in their own lives, in their own circles. You know, you don't want to hoard the knowledge. You want to spread it. And, you know, and you want that knowledge to lead to action that actually makes change. So, you know, we see education as an agent of change. And so part of our business in the service of that mission on the path to equality is providing some of that education. Not in the old way of giving people lots of resources and giving people lots of reading to do, but asking lots of questions that make people think and lead them to take action when they have resolved those questions for themselves.
Where can the people find you online?
People can find me at missionequality.com. We also have a site called equaliversity.com, which is where our leadership development program is. You can subscribe to my newsletter at antiracismnewsletter.com. You can find more details about me, sharonhh.com. And I'm most active on LinkedIn, so that's the best place to connect with me on social media.
Thank you for listening to People Explained. New episodes come out every Monday. We would appreciate it if you gave us a review on Apple Podcasts and shared this episode with a friend.